Hi, I'm Christina, and today we are talking about how to effectively manage neurodivergent staff. I have a free masterclass that I am hosting tomorrow. You can sign up and you can get the recording because it will be recorded. You can go in my link in my profile or in the caption if you're on YouTube. And from there, what you can do is go into events and find my masterclass in there. It will be tomorrow during the day. So if you work or if that's just not something you can do, it doesn't fit in your time zone, sign up anyway, get the recording so you can have all the resources you need to start effectively managing neurodivergent staff. So this is a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about because I myself am not only ADHD and dyslexic, I also work with a lot of people who are ADHD, autistic, dyslexic, and lots of other people within the neurodiverse umbrella, which includes dyspraxia, dyscalculia, as well as so many other things. The umbrella is vast and there's a lot of overlap as well. So if you are looking for ways, if you're a leader, if you're somebody who is really struggling to effectively manage, keep people focused, this training is for you. So if you also manage staff that have very busy brains and big ideas, and they burn out on projects, on tasks, or don't seem to finish on time, there's a lot of things that you can learn in this training. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the high level items that we're going to be going over in this training. I do this training pretty frequently. I do it in person and virtually. This time it's free online though, so this one is for you. The first thing I will say is that if you're looking to support your neurodivergent staff, is that it's really important not to diagnose, especially if people have not disclosed. So what I go through in this training is to talk about how you can identify or see traits so you understand some of the neurodivergent challenges, but also strengths. Because while, yes, ADHDers can have trouble with focus, it doesn't mean that we can't focus, period. It just means we may not focus on the right thing. So at work, what that can look like day to day, I'm looking at TikTok and at YouTube at the same time, so I'm going to be switching between. What that can look like day to day is that somebody with ADHD, for example, or ADHD, which is autism and ADHD, may come into the workplace and be challenged by what they are supposed to be focusing on for the day, and they may go ahead and focus on the thing that is not necessarily the most important item, because the way ADHD brains work, we have challenges being able to tell how to prioritize, essentially. So when you're learning about prioritization as somebody with ADHD, understanding what activates our brain is important. And there's 4 things. Hey, HR Molly's literally in the chat under HR Explained. Good to see you in here. I'm talking about ways to activate an ADHD brain when you're managing ADHDers. So 4 things to remember. The ADHD brain is activated by urgency, novelty, passion/interest, and competition. Now, not every ADHDer is the same. Some ADHDers really do thrive in competitive environments, and that could be competitive with other teams, competitive with self, competitive with externals, like sales, industry, etc. Or they may not really be driven by competition. They could be driven more along the lines of urgency, or maybe their passion and interest or special interest overall. So when you are really wanting to activate an ADHD brain, it's important to know those 4 things: urgency, novelty, passion/interest, and competition. So Molly said, yes. And to me, everything is urgent. Yes, everything feels urgent. So and that sometimes can be a nervous system response too. But my clients, my brain just acts that way. The clients love it. And that's another important thing too. If you are wanting somebody to be very responsive to clients, if they're very interested in it, an ADHD is a great person to have on your team. Again, it doesn't mean that we can't do other things. It doesn't mean other people can't behave the way we do. It just means that we can utilize the strengths that we have in the workplace. It's not just about the challenges we face, although that is important. You definitely leverage your ADHD in your work. So I guess it works for, yeah, absolutely. And that's important to leverage your ADHD and learn how to. And that is one thing that I think a lot of people have not mastered, especially when they're still either discovering that, I don't even know where this pin came from. ADHD much me? Especially when they're discovering what their ADHD is and how it functions for them and how it may look different than somebody else that they know. And as leaders, the important thing to know too is that maybe you have an accommodation for one ADHDer. It may not necessarily work for a different one. Rocket Crusade, passing by, love the hair. Thank you. Please stay safe out there. Your hard work is enough. Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate that. So one of the things that I got last week when I was leading this workshop that you can sign up for in on my page under events, you go to the link and you can see events from there, events and training, is the top questions I get are how to engage the staff, how to keep them focused, and how to really give them the support that they need so that you don't feel like you're babysitting. And what we'll talk about in this training is how to honor your management style while also acknowledging what support options you have and how to approach accommodations, especially informal accommodations, with curiosity, how you work best. And we do encourage our managers and leaders that go through this training to show people what accommodations look like. So regardless of if you have ADHD or not, everybody needs some type of informal accommodation. I was reminding some leaders about they had a staff member that likes to leave or is able to leave around 3 o'clock because they're a caregiver for an older grandparent. And that's when they take them to a doctor appointment that they go to weekly. That's an accommodation that you're making for that client, that staff member. It didn't go through a formal HR process. It didn't necessarily have to go through approved channels. That was the boss saying, it is okay for you to leave at 3. You get in at 7, you can leave at 3. Sounds great. Your work's not suffering. The team will be fine. That's an accommodation. You're already making informal accommodations as a leader and as a manager. Okay. So, hey, Val, it's good to see you. If you're still here. So, if you're watching this over on YouTube, let me know in the chat. And then, of course, TikTok. Thanks for being here. We are talking about, yay, I see you. We are talking about how to effectively manage neurodivergent staff and how to learn to work with their strengths and address their challenges while also being able to honor your management style and honoring their needs as somebody on your team. So when people are talking about their diagnosis or they're not, maybe you notice traits, maybe they have a hard time paying attention during certain types of meetings that you know for a fact they are not very interested in. Sorry, somebody keeps asking. Yeah, so somebody kept asking to come on co-host, and I'm turning that off for now. So if you have somebody that is, maybe showing traits of neurodivergence, maybe they have overwhelm, maybe they have some sensory challenges, maybe they don't necessarily participate in meetings, but they are a valuable member of the team and you want them to, it's important to approach with curiosity and ask them, what needs to be true for you to feel like you can be an active participant on the team in the team meetings. And what I also encourage leaders to think about is a lot of accommodations and changes that you can make don't negatively impact you or even your team. In fact, it can do the opposite. It can actually help your team as a whole and not just the one person. And I'll give you an example, something incredibly simple. And in this training, we talk about a lot of low to no cost accommodation ideas because accommodations aren't expensive most of the time. They're typically range from $0 to $500 at the most. That's the typical range for formal accommodations. So what I encourage people to do when they are evaluating accommodations is to think about not just what you would want or what you think that they need, to ask them questions. A way to start supporting your staff is to let them know what to expect. This is helpful for anybody. So I always recommend the 3 Ps in a meeting agenda: purpose, process, payoff. What your goal of the meeting is. Maybe it's to get on the same page on a new marketing marketing quarter strategy to make up for a budget shortfall. Very common type of activity, right? That's the purpose. The process is who's going to be doing what during the meeting. And so what this does is it lets people know what they're expected, what they can expect. Maybe they need to bring some data. Maybe they could come with some addition. It may even give them ideas on what they could bring to the table. And then at the end, you're going to say what the payoff is. The payoff is actionable next steps to address the budget shortfall and next 2-week plan to execute. So people will know exactly what they're going to expect out of the meeting, and they know what's expected of them and know what the goal is. I can't tell you how many times I was in meetings where we had no goal. And it was incredibly frustrating. So as a manager, as a leader, giving people the understanding of what they can expect, what they can bring to the table, and what is expected to get at the outcome can be a great place to start to support your staff, especially those who are neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, dyslexic. A big thing is being able to understand what is expected. So I'm interested to know what you've experienced at work when it comes to getting support, either giving support when it comes to somebody needing accommodation, but maybe not a formal one. And then maybe you've had accommodations. I've gone through accommodation processes more than once, and none of them were good experiences. I had an informal accommodation with my boss. That one was a good conversation where I said, you know what, I have dyslexia. I would benefit from, there was one small program on the computer. It didn't cost anything, but IT had to put it in because it was not something that I could download onto the system. And she was like, that's it. That's all you need to be able to succeed right now. And I was like, I can succeed without it. I would be able to do a lot better if I had it. And so that was a great experience. And so beyond that, though, working through the HR formal process, not great. So in the training that I'm leading tomorrow afternoon, go ahead and go to my page and you can sign up. And if you sign up, you'll get the recording, even if you can't attend. So I encourage you to go and sign up for the training. We'll also talk about other low to no cost ways to support your staff. You'll get a checklist of accommodation ideas, and these would be good for you too. If you are somebody who has neurodivergent traits, are diagnosed, suspects to be diagnosed, and these are great steps that you can great things that you can look at to be able to support yourself in the workplace or support your staff members. This is also important for leaders who are wanting to move up in corporate, who aren't sure how to support staff where they are, and maybe you yourself would benefit from some support. A reminder is that it's not just neurodivergent staff that benefit from these types of accommodations that you'll learn about in this training. Anybody that's experiencing executive dysfunction challenges benefit. Let's talk about what that means. Executive functioning happens in the prefrontal cortex. This is where decision-making happens, impulsivity, planning, time management, and a lot of those things happen in the prefrontal cortex. When you are dysregulated, upset, overwhelmed, confused, all of those things. Maybe you're going through grief. Maybe you're going through a stint where you haven't had a job in a while, and figuring out how to be back in the workplace is confusing. And there's a lot of emotions there, and that can cause dysregulation. Dysregulation negatively impacts your prefrontal cortex and your executive functioning. So the tools we're going to be sharing really can benefit other people and not just ADHDers. I'm going to go shut my door because my dog's barking. Just a second. He's a hoot and a half and wild. So if you have questions, I'd love to hear them in the chat. If you have I would love to know if you've received accommodations and how that experience was, or B, if you manage people and you're not quite sure how to support them. We're experiencing a lot of challenges right now in the world as a whole, and people's executive functioning is really overloaded, having to make decisions, absorb content, understand the news. understand what's going on in the world around them that impacts them directly and their family and maybe their business and their grandparents or friends and family overseas. There's so many different things. So I would love to know maybe some challenges that you've experienced with staff members when it comes to overwhelm. Overwhelm is one of those things that it's really difficult sometimes to quantify the negative impact, but you can see it, you can feel it, and you definitely can sit there and see on the spreadsheets where productivity sometimes drops. I do want to share some information from the Department of Labor. There's a really good website called askjan.org, askjan.org. It's from the Department of Labor. And the interesting thing about it is that they surveyed a bunch of employers who had implemented formal accommodations for their staff members. The interesting thing is that there's a lot of positive statistics around accommodations. So if you are trying to figure out what this looks like as an HR leader or even as a leader in an organization, there are a lot of statistics around the positive aspects of implementing an accommodation. Again, accommodations don't have to be these big formal processes all the time. They could be the way that you approach meetings. They could be how people are able to sit in an office. They could be how you have agendas or how you organize meeting times. There's lots of different ways that you can identify and support your staff, whether frontline, corporate, professional roles, entry level. There's so many different ways. So some employers that were surveyed, out of the ones that did implement accommodations, 85% of them retained a valuable employee. 48% of the employers surveyed that implemented accommodations had greater employee attendance. 46% of them reported eliminated costs associated with training new employee because you don't have to find a new one. And then they had 23% saved employees' compensation or other insurance costs. Those were the direct benefits. Now, the indirect benefits of accommodating a staff member included 34% of the employers had noted improved interactions with coworkers. So not only was it more productive for them to receive the accommodation, they were able to have more positive interactions and improved interactions with their colleagues. 21% of the employers noted greater company productivity, not just employee, but company productivity went up. From there, we have improved company attendance by 19% of the employers noted improved company attendance. So not only are accommodations covered by the ADA, they are an amazing business practice so that you can see improvements in your organization when implemented and implemented well. So that is something to keep in mind as you go through your leadership experiences, as you manage. So when you're learning how to manage neurodivergent staff, know the data and the statistics. Go over to askjan.org yourself. Again, it's run by the Department of Labor. They have amazing statistics around the benefits of giving accommodations to staff and how it actually helps their bottom line. So out of all of the employers that actually implemented accommodations, 34% of those employers noted improved interaction with coworkers. 21% saw a greater company productivity, and 19% reported improved company attendance. That's incredible. That is really incredible, and shows a lot of it shows a lot of integrity, not just on those employers, but also shows the benefits and how incredible they are. Okay, so what does this look like as a leader? So as a leader, it's important to recognize what your management style is. Now, the training I'm doing tomorrow will not go deep into management styles. We'll take some time to reflect what your management style is so you can figure out the point of that activity is to figure out, are there things within the context of my management style that is negatively impacting my staff member? We only do that so we can reflect and figure out different ways that we can support. So, because what we don't want to do is not honor our own management style and instead over accommodate. And then what happens is that maybe we're micromanaging. Maybe we took away autonomy. Maybe we took away a lot of things that they really enjoyed. Hey, Mel, great to see you. Thanks for coming to the live. Talking about managing neurodivergent staff and how you can support them and how it is financially smart and how businesses and organizations who make accommodations see the benefits on their bottom line. So yeah, thanks for the hearts, everybody. And make sure to share this live with somebody that you think would benefit to learn more about how to manage neurodivergent staff. And as a reminder, challenges with executive functioning are one of the biggest things with ADHD and autistic people. And that happens in your prefrontal cortex. Other people who are not neurodivergent also experience this. People experiencing grief, people going through perimenopause, people going through menopause. It's not just women. There's also a lot of people when you're in chronic overwhelm and overstimulated, even if you're not diagnosed, even if you're challenged with it, you can really, really benefit from a lot of these accommodations. So things that you're implementing for neurodivergent staff, either diagnosed or traits that you see, can benefit other members of the team. Working memory support is critical for, oh yes, that's a really good point. Working memory is something that I had to really, which is funny because that's one of the ones that I had such a hard time remembering what it was working memory. So if you're not familiar with the phrase working memory, Mel on TikTok made a great point. If you don't follow Mindset Melody Business Coach on TikTok, you definitely should. And working memory is all about kind of like short-term memory. So figuring out if somebody's looking at, I always compare it to if you've ever been looking at somebody, they're giving you directions, you hear them, but you are not able to process what they just said and it's too much, or you're challenged by it that day. That's part of your working memory challenges. I had therapy today, for example, and I had to repeat back every question the therapist was asking me today. I'd say, okay, what I heard was this. And she'd say, that's not what I asked. I'm going to try again. And I'd say, okay, like we just have that agreement. Yeah. Word recall is one of the hardest parts for me. Yeah, I agree. It's especially when we're on a live like this, sometimes I can completely forget. I do have notes that I look at because working memory. So being able to have slides sometimes is great for me when it comes to flow. One of the interesting things, Mel, that I also have for my presentations is I put a little clock icon on the spots where I ask questions, so that if the flow is moving in a direction that might be moving away from me taking a pause, I can, that's a reminder for me to take a pause. So that's an accommodation that I make for myself to remember to do that, because this is my hyper focus. This is my special interest. I dive headfirst into psychology, how the brain works, how ADHD impacts business positives and challenges. And so I have little icons on my slides that tell me, here's a time to pause and ask a question. So that's something that I do that costs me no money, that I don't have to put my business credit card in every time I put that into Canva. I don't have to do that. And you know what? Nobody cares if that's in a presentation. Absolutely nobody cares. Yes, I did go get a Diet Coke from the Dollar Tree. It's going to be a good night. So when we are thinking about different ways to support our staff, it's also important to think about how we support ourselves. So why we go into how you work best is because if you're going to be asking your staff how they work best, it's important for you to be able to display how you work best. Do you work best when you have time for deep work in the morning? If you can't answer the question, I work best when, you would benefit from taking a step back and then asking yourself that question so you can show and tell people how you work best. And that also is a way for your staff to know how to work with you. Because if you want them to answer the question, it is amazing for you to be able to answer it before they do. And it also gives them permission and that flexibility. So let me give you some examples. I would love for y'all to say, like, I work best when. I know that, Mel, you have some great ways that you work best. I'd love to hear them from you, not to put you too much on the spot if you don't want to share. So how can you best support yourself as a leader when it comes to how you work best? I want you to think about 3 zones: home, work, and play. I have this as a part of a free download that you'll receive for registering for the workshop that I am hosting tomorrow. It's a free masterclass, how to manage neurodivergent staff. So I encourage you to go and sign up for it. You'll receive a free self-accommodation workbook that you can review. But I want you to think about home, work, and play. I relax best when thinking about home. I work best when, and I have fun when, and fill in the blank. So Mel said, I work best when I'm in my optimum windows from 9 to 2 p.m. I love that. I know that you're more of a morning, early afternoon person. And I think that's important to know that you work best when during those times. So if somebody's wanting to have an engaging conversation with you or work through some stuff, or maybe that's time where you work best on independent work, figuring out what that looks like. For me, I work best when I have a meeting most mornings out of the week to get me out of bed, get me momentum, give me some momentum, and then to have a break for several hours so I can work on content. I can work on client follow-up. I can work on emails. I can do a lot. So after I get off this live in the next few minutes, I'm going to be moving into my next part of the evening, which is I'm going to be hosting some body doubling with one of my clients. So I work best when I'm able to use many different tools to support my ADHD new environment. I work from a co-working space a couple of times a week. I work best when I can have body doubling options so that I can be held accountable and have somebody else there to do work with together, even though we're not working on the same thing. I work best when I can have a scheduled time in the morning and then several hours break to do work and execute work, and then do car line pickup and then get back into work again. I've got some breaks. I've got some musts to bust things up, to break things up, but I don't have a long 8 hours of just like empty, because that would be overwhelming for me. And I know that about myself now. I love transition time. Okay, let's talk about that. So I had somebody ask the question, one of the leaders in my trainings last week, say that they noticed that one of their staff members was really challenged when they had their heavy work days, which means back-to-back meetings, which means they don't get they get a lunch break, but it's like 15 minutes. It's a corporate role. It's once a week where they have the 15-minute lunch break, where it literally is go back to your office, grab your lunch, and come back for the lunch meeting. They don't have a break. So we talked about it a little bit. Some ADHDers, and this person's disclosed that they have ADHD, some ADHDers benefit when we can keep the momentum going. If we're going to have back-to-back meetings, let's just go. And then some benefit from having some transition time between activities. I'm the type of ADHD, the flavor, where it's good if I can have back-to-back as long as it's on the same topic. So like if I'm having back-to-back coaching sessions, awesome. If I'm going from a volunteer meeting to coaching to a kid activity, that transitions too much. So I thank you for bringing that up. So Mel said, I need time in between calls or I will get revenge bedtime procrastination. Yeah. So I love that. And I think it's important to recognize when you need some break time. I have decided on days where I've been getting a lot done. I've had a lot of really great momentum. If I don't pace myself going into the late afternoon, early evening, I'm going to do that same thing, revenge bedtime. So what I find myself doing now is I'll get to the car line about 10 minutes early, which, is not really that early. And that's when I can scroll. That's when I chat with my friends over text. That's when I'm doing whatever I want. Because for 10 minutes, I'm kind of held captive. I don't necessarily focus on productivity. Sometimes I record TikToks if I feel up for it. Other than that, I use it as a transition time where I'm just kind of hanging. Otherwise, I will find myself sitting in my driveway staring at the wall. I've got a rock wall that's right on the other side of my carport. And I'm just like, I found myself just staring at it for 10 minutes at a time. And that's not always helpful. All right. Cool. All right, y'all. I'm going to go prepare for my next one. If you have not signed up for my virtual masterclass tomorrow. You can go, and if you're on YouTube, you can find it in the link in the caption notes. And then if you're on TikTok, you can find it on my bio page. You know where to go to find it, under events. Bye, Mel. Go ahead and sign up. There will be a recording, as well as lots of really, really good freebies when you sign up. So you'll get those after the recording, after we record and it's sent out, including a free self-accommodation workbook that is a $45 value. So I send that out for free with the masterclass. So check it out. And yeah, hopefully I'll see y'all at the training.